What makes a leader? What pulls us beyond what we thought was our best and into sustained greatness? Tune in right here with Ron Kitchens to learn how to challenge and change your best so that you can move forward into leading at your highest level.
Hey everyone, this is Shannon Allen on the Always Forward Leadership Podcast with Ron Kitchens. Ron, how are you today?
I am awesome.
Sorry, I keep your mic in line.
With the mic.
That is awesome. So we have something that we've been doing with our team here that has probably been like one of my favorite team engagement exercises that we've done. But we have been bringing in our favorite children's books and reading them to the team and then explaining what lessons we can learn from those and that we can apply in the work that we do today. So what is your favorite children's book and what do you think you can learn from it as a leader?
Thanks. Well, my favorite children's book is a book called I'll Promise I'll Find You. And it's something it's important to our family.
Mm-hmm.
This one actually is special for me because it has an inscription in it that my daughter Kelsey gave me this book for Father's Day.
Wow.
With an inscription that's pretty meaningful to me. And but it's a book that we read, and for me, it's about us as a family. You know, when there's three of us, my wife, my daughter Kelsey, and I, was that we always have each other and we have responsibilities for each other.
Mm-hmm.
And if I have to walk or crawl or run, I will find you.
Mm-hmm.
I will move heaven and earth for you. And I think it says that you're important to me and I'm important to you.
Yeah.
And so it's it's a lesson, and I love the children's books too.
Mm-hmm.
The because one you learn insights from people about what's important to them.
Yeah.
People had friends who said, "Why aren't you worried that people take it, immaturely?" It's never happened. I learned my good friend Tim Tarantine, who was actually on the podcast with us last week. Tim read, when we did this exercise years ago, Tim read a book by Dr. Seuss. And I forget the name of it, but it's about different characters have different spots on their stomach. And about some spots are then thought of as higher ranking people because of their spots.
I remember that book well, yeah.
And it never dawned on me it was about racism.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until Tim read this and then said, here's why it was important to me, that it literally is an epiphany that today I have goosebumps thinking about him teaching it. So there are lessons that we learn in children's books that are only told in a simple way. It doesn't mean the lesson is simple.
Absolutely.
And, and then we see, funny books that somebody read a book of poetry the other day, and it was about, I'll ruin the thing, but it was about a girl who wanted a pony and her parents wouldn't give her a pony, and she said if she didn't get a pony, she would die. And they said, you won't die, but she did.
Yeah, she died because she didn't get the pony. That was from Where the Sidewalk Is.
Yeah, there we go. I never heard that before.
Yes, we had a great laugh on that one.
It was the most amazing thing I've ever seen. And so, I think we learn a lot from it. We learn a lot about each other.
Absolutely.
And what drives us.
Yeah, well, I've definitely enjoyed that exercise.
Yeah.
So we have got a really good episode ahead of us, and we are going to talk about raising the bar, all about setting the right standards and the right benchmarks for yourself personally or for your teams to really propel you into greatness and to help you sustain greatness. And so I was thinking about it the other day. There's an exercise that I've done when I've gone to like workshops or something like that where the moderator will say, okay, I want you to reach your hands up as high as you can reach. And everybody does it in the room. And then they say, okay, now reach a little higher. And everybody reaches a little higher. And they're like, now see, you thought that you had gone as high as you could go until I told you to go a little higher. And so I was thinking about that, in preparing for this conversation about standards. And I think sustaining greatness works that way because it really shows up in our lives when we push ourselves to go further than we thought we could. And so we're just going to talk about setting standards and benchmarks that just keep you reaching higher and pushing further. So when we talk about sustaining greatness, I think when we use that word, it could be misconstrued as kind of like maintaining a status quo.
Oh, we hate the status quo.
Right, exactly. But really, sustaining greatness is about just constantly achieving new heights. And so how do you know as a leader when you've reached that plateau and you've moved from sustaining greatness to maintaining a status quo?
Oh, I think everybody knows it.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody, when you start feeling comfortable, you need to go lose because you've quit winning.
Mm-hmm.
And, you can use sports metaphors in this because they're the easy ones.
Yeah.
But, this idea that the status quo, so the status quo was invented as another word for average.
Mm-hmm.
Because status quo is the point that everyone on both sides of the equation understand what that number is, what that achievement is, what that looks like. So if you are at the status quo, you have given up.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and I've told leaders and written about it, if you don't want to compete anymore past that, please quit your job.
Right.
Please turn over point leadership to somebody else because you're dying,
Mm-hmm.
your organization's dying, and you just haven't admitted it.
Right.
We have to be challenging and changing our best every day.
Mm-hmm.
I have a friend who's a very successful, college football coach. If I said his name, he's has a national name and following and best-selling books and a great guy. But he reminds me that every play that he has ever called as a coach is on tape.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody has a tape of it. All of his competitors have a tape of it. They know every play he's ever run in every situation, and there's a computer that will tell the opposing coach at this position on the field with this time remaining, with this many downs, here's the 3 plays that he's running that are 25 plays. He's running that, and here's the odds of that.
Mm-hmm.
So the only way he's going to win is A, to be able to perform at a higher level, to go faster than they went before, or create new plays, new opportunities, execute in different ways than's been done before.
Right.
But if he just does the way he did last year and won, then this year he's going to have 1 or 2 fewer wins.
Mm-hmm.
And the next year he's going to have 3 or 4 fewer wins. And the next year he's going to be fired.
Yeah.
And so, we have to constantly be challenging and changing our best. And there is no room for average in this world, none.
Mm-hmm.
Because, this idea that, you're 1 in a million.
Right.
Well, there's 300 billion people on the planet. So that makes you, 300 people that are exactly like you.
Right.
I probably didn't get that math right. I'm a political science major, so math was not my thing. But, you're not unique.
Yeah.
And so hard work and challenging and changing the best are the only thing that are going to guarantee you the opportunity to win.
Yeah. And there's something that you say a lot about. One of your worst nightmares is waking up with the track marks on your face of the people who went faster while you were standing still. I know I probably messed that up.
I wake up worried that look in the mirror and I expect to see puncture marks from track cleats digging into my face while I was sleeping. They ran right over the top of me.
Yeah.
And it's a real legitimate. I probably should seek help over that one, but that and the fact that I have repeating dreams with the word Hudson in them. I don't know what that's about either.
That's a strange one.
It is. But, it is a fact. If you are not worried about excelling, then you're floating.
Absolutely.
If you're not swimming, you're floating. And there's not much room for winning.
Absolutely. Yeah. So how do leaders assess and decide what standards or benchmarks they should be aiming for personally or in their organizations?
I think understanding, back to sports metaphors, you can have a personal record, but your personal record could be awful compared to everybody else. If I went and ran a 5K tomorrow, whatever the number was, would be my personal record. Now, that won't, nobody else will post that number online.
Right.
But if you then understand, well, what's the race record?
Mm-hmm.
What's the Olympic record?
Mm-hmm.
What's the world record?
Mm-hmm.
And you're moving towards those all the time.
Right.
That's what success
Yeah.
looks like. But too many times people will set a goal, achieve it, and believe that they have hit the ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, all they have done is hit a personal best.
Right.
Or aren't paying attention and didn't realize that the world record got broken
Mm-hmm.
3 times since they looked at
Mm-hmm.
it. So you've got to constantly be looking, evaluating, and understanding that that the competition never sleeps.
Yeah. So what are some telltale signs for a leader that the standards that they're aiming for are just too low?
I think part of it, what I see a lot, is people measuring themselves against other groups or individuals that nobody else ever heard of or is measuring against.
Mm-hmm.
I see it in our business. We one time, our organization went for an economic development award, and we submitted our website, and lo and behold, we won best website in the year. And I go to get the award, and I looked down on the awards table and realized we had submitted our old one that what we hated and had just spent a year redoing. And if our old one won, then it told me how low the competition was.
Yeah.
And we never again submitted another award because it was a little bit like being the fastest fat kid. And I get that we all want to compete, but you got to make sure what you're doing matters.
Yeah.
A lot of people have taken credit for it, but I'm gonna give it to Ray Wiley Hubbard, that said, I never want to, be great I don't want to end my life being great at something that didn't matter.
Wow. Yeah.
And make sure you're being great at something that matters.
Absolutely. Talking about measuring yourself against other groups. So I work with our creative team here, and Ryan and I actually were talking the other day, and we were talking about, we have some deliverables that we send out with our team to go and market the region, right? And the team came back and said, the people we're talking to are telling us that this stuff y'all are making is the best they've ever seen. And, Ryan and I, we kind of looked at each other, we chuckled, and we kind of committed to each other of yeah, but that's not our standard.
That's not good. That's not even the best we can do.
Right. And I think that's key when you know what your potential is, and you hear somebody else saying, "Oh my gosh, that's so great," but yeah, but I can do better. So I'm not going to hold myself to your standard. We're going to hold ourselves to our own.
Well, and
standards.
I think too, we who you measure yourself against is critical. So I've, as you know, I've done a lot of speaking in churches, and a lot. It seemed for a season there, I was speaking to a lot of churches who were doing capital campaigns, because you'd walk into their church and it was in standard definition.
Yeah.
The screens were fuzzy and the sound quality was and it just didn't feel as good as the production value of my television in the basement.
Right.
And we're in a high definition world.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not constantly improving the high definitionness of your work, then why would anybody trust you to believe you understand the other struggles and the quality issues around their life?
Yeah.
Nobody wants to be part of underperforming organizations.
And that's so true. So how do leaders, when it's easy to settle for an external standard because it's being celebrated, how do you keep that internal push and drive to aim for your higher standards?
I think you have to know who you measure yourself against. So if you think you're really good at packaging a product or a gift, go buy something from Apple. and realize that the texture of their paper is different than anything you've ever felt in your life.
Yeah.
I remember a few years ago, I was able to, in our world in economic development, people are pretty willing to share it. And it happened to be the group at Georgia Power in Atlanta that shared the Economic Success Center they have. And I walked out of there, and it was the first time in my life I ever thought, I don't know how to compete against this. It was so professional.
Wow.
And the quality of the presentations were so incredible, and the equipment was so incredible. Everything about it was amazing. And it took me 6 months probably to figure out how I could compete against that. But it was some of the most energetic 6 months of looking at new technologies and learning and championing that.
Yeah.
So you've got to understand that measuring yourself against peers, you may have the wrong peers.
That's so good.
Measure yourself against who the best are in the world, because we're in a meritocracy. I can go online and see right now who the influencers are on Instagram who have the most followers and know how they're monetizing that and what they're doing with that. And if that's what I want to do, that's the level I've got to actually so overperform that to get even recognized to do that. So if that's what the world has the knowledge of, you don't have any excuse or ability to underperform.
Absolutely. And I mean, it really goes back to that old saying, we've all heard it. If you're the smartest one and the most capable one in your circle of friends, you
Get
need
some
to
new
find a new
friends.
circle. Don't get comfortable and don't get prideful about being the smartest one in the room. Find somebody who's smarter than you and let them challenge you and push you. So kind of flipping this a little bit, what are the dangers of leaders setting benchmarks that are unrealistically high for their teams? And how do we avoid that?
That's a good question, because I'm a big believer in setting wildly unattainable goals, because I find you achieve them. So I think the idea of understanding what you want, understanding what it takes to get that, and then breaking it down into small increments to know you're winning every day, and that that it may be a journey. Yeah. And I'm a big fan of rugby, and if you look a few years ago at South Africa, they went from a dismal, horrific team to 4 years later winning the World Cup. Right. But in those 4 years was all about losing, was all about learning, was all about preparing. But they knew that they were doing those steps and paying those dues because it would get them to the championship at the World Cup. Yeah. And so I think a good leader casts incredible vision and then helps chart courses that ensure people know they're winning at milestones, but also is constantly talking about why we're putting the work in to do this. Yeah,
that's really good. So what practical steps and measures should leaders be taking to kind of keep a pulse on, are we winning?
I think the first thing is ask people. We're a big believer in surveying, organization. And so there are great survey companies out there that'll do that work for you. We also believe in active participation with, in our case, Inc. magazine and Outside magazine of their best places to work, because that takes us against our cultural peers. So that companies we're really competing against ourselves, but we're being measured against our, in advertising and consultancy and insurance and a wide variety of industries. Well, in today's meritocracy, those are the people we have to work to achieve par with. Right. Otherwise, we won't get the most incredible talent to work with us.
Yeah, it's really good. So I think that is a great place for us to wrap up. Do you have any final thoughts?
I think just this idea that I would rather be walking at the end of my life with a bucket that's worn out than a bucket that is rusted out. And it's your choice which it is, and go wear your bucket out. Yeah. I've never seen one actually wear out. I probably have. There's probably on the dairy farm. There's probably some buckets, but go wear yourself out.
That's good stuff. Thank you all so much for listening, and we will see you next week.
See you next week.
Thanks for joining us. If today's conversation has ignited greatness in you, take your next step and visit ronkitchens.com to gain more inspiration and to connect with Ron. You can also tweet Ron at Ron Kitchens. Until next time, keep moving, always forward.